Alrighty, good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for our Agriculture Forum with congressional candidates for New Mexico Congressional District 1. My name is Tiffany Rivera, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau. Before we begin this evening, I just want to take a quick moment to thank the agriculture organizations that helped us put this forum together. The Dairy Farmers of America, Dairy Producers of New Mexico, Farm Credit of New Mexico Association of Conservation Districts, New Mexico Chili Association, the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association, New Mexico Federal Lands Council, and the New Mexico Wool Growers Association. Thanks again for joining us. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Matt Martinez, who is going to be moderating our forum this evening. Matt, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and thanks to Chad Smith, Tiffany, and Delaney for helping get this forum put together today. I've had a couple of opportunities in the past to do some work for the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, so I appreciate them calling me back. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Matt Martinez. My wife and I own SDC Broadcasting, and that company owns 5 radio stations, 4 in Las Vegas, that's where I'm from, and 1 here in Albuquerque. We have the newest station here in Albuquerque. It's Q102, and we play music from the 60s and 70s. So I think there's a lot of folks that enjoy that music. I'd like for all of you to reach out to me if you'd like to get an interview over the air here at our station, and we can get that information, or you can get that information from Tiffany. I've been a broadcaster for more than 20 years. And prior to that, our family owned a propane company up in northern New Mexico. We sold that in 1998. I've served my community in many roles, including as a city councilor and as mayor of Las Vegas. I've had the honor to serve the citizens of New Mexico on various boards and commissions over the last 28 years. I've been on the Construction Industries Commission, the AmeriCorps Board, and currently on the National Hispanic Cultural Center Board of Directors, where I currently serve as president of the board of directors for the 2nd time. With that, I'd like to just point out a few, rules for today's forum. And first and foremost, I'm going to give everyone 3 minutes to do an introduction. And that way you can give your own story to all of the folks that are listening. And we'll be getting questions from some of the folks in the agricultural industry. So they'll be getting them to Tiffany. Tiffany will relay them to me, and I'll ask them in between some of the questions that have already been put together. We will not have an opportunity for rebuttal because that may take a while, but you could probably sneak that in on your question, the next question quickly, and then move on to the question at hand. So we're going to rotate this. Hopefully we'll have a good, friendly conversation. We understand the task at hand is rather large. So we want to make sure that we get as much information out to the industry as we possibly can. And with that, we wish all of you the best of luck. And we'll go ahead and start. And I'd like to rotate these. So I'm going to start with Dr. Robert Ornelas. And if you don't mind, I'm going to call you all by your first name. That way we can move a little quicker. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And I know there's a lot of titles, and I don't want to negate that in any way, but I want to make sure that we get through this as quickly as possible. But I think we don't have 2 people with the same name, so it's not going to be too difficult. So with that, Robert, we're going to let you start off. 3 minutes, sir. And don't forget, Delaney is also keeping track of the time. So when you see that hand of hers go up like this, that means you've got 15 seconds, okay?
Thank you, sir. My name is Dr. Robert Ornelas, and it's a tremendous honor to be here. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. It's a blessing because my great uncle, they named the Nellis Air Force Base after him because he was a World War II hero. So to be here and to see you is a tremendous honor. I want to thank you to all those associated with this forum, agricultural forum. Thank you to the constituents from the Congressional District 1 in the great state of New Mexico. I've been blessed and honored to work for years throughout the Navajo Nation, working with the last 4 Navajo presidents, advocating, encouraging the students and young people and dealing with the suicide epidemic. So to be here is a tremendous honor. just very grateful for all the candidates, and thank you for your just being public servants. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll move on over to Laura.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Laura Olivas, and I am a Democratic independent write-in for this congressional seat. I've been here in New Mexico for about 17 years. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. I'm a Southwest girl by heart. I currently work as a pharmacy technician. I am a lower middle class American who has been impacted with a lot of the issues that most of New Mexicans have been impacted with. My decision to run for this congressional seat mainly was the divisiveness of the nation and our state, as well as just the increase of hate and not a lot of hope left. I know what hard work is. I know what adversity feels like. And I am here because of the hope of that resiliency and the same resiliency that New Mexicans have. And it propels me to advocate for my nation and this state. And I want to thank everybody here in this forum. Thank you so much for inviting me. And this is such a great experience for me. And I hope that others that feel like they want to run can do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura, very much. We'll move on over to Aubrey.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for inviting us, and thanks to everybody for hosting this. My name is Aubrey Dunn. I live in Torrance County, southern part between Mountain Air and Corona. I grew up in the town, or was born in the town of Alamogordo, same town as my father was born, and I have a youngest son born there. I grew up in High Rolls, which is in between Cloudcroft and Alamogordo on an apple farm. I went to school in Alamogordo and graduated, and then on to Colorado State, where I got a degree in animal science. I started selling real estate in Albuquerque right out of college, and Jimmy Carter was in and interest rates went to 21%, and it was hard to sell anything. So I got into the other side of the business and got into working for Farm Credit, the PCA in Monte Vista, Colorado for 2 years. After that, I moved to Roswell, went to work for a bank there, First Interstate, and then Western Bank in Alamogordo for 10 years. After that, I went ahead and became president and CEO of First Federal Bank out of Roswell. We were scattered throughout the state. In fact, opened 2 branches in Albuquerque. We merged with Gallup Federal, so we have a pretty good idea of the Farmington and Gallup area. In about 1995, we got into agriculture and ranching in a more permanent way. My wife and I have owned about 13 ranches. We currently own, our current ranch is about 26,000 acres, and we have a cow-calf operation. In 2014, I ran as Land Commissioner and was successful, served 4 years there, and really had an opportunity to serve. This opportunity came up with Deb Howland leaving her position to run or to be Secretary of Interior. And it looked like to me a great opportunity to serve the state again. And so we stepped up, and that's why we're running. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. Next is Mark. Senator.
Thank you, Matt. I'm State Senator Mark Morris from here in Bernalillo County. I am running because I'm very concerned about what's happening in New Mexico. Matt, my ancestors first came to New Mexico in the 1600s, settled into the Espanola, what we now call the Espanola Valley. And they were farmers. They moved up from Mexico and they dug acequias, planted farms, planted apple trees. And my ancestors have been here ever since. And I've been very concerned for a number of years about what's happening, especially with the crime issue here in Albuquerque and central New Mexico. It's just tearing our state apart. I've been in the state Senate for 3 terms now, 9 years. I am the Republican caucus chair in the state Senate. I have my background as when I first got out of college. I went to UNM. I played football for the Lobos. I worked for Congressman Steve Schiff right when I got out of school. Then I had the opportunity to work with Lieutenant Governor Walter Bradley as his chief of staff in Santa Fe. So we go way back, and he's one of my mentors, and I'm very proud of that. And, you know, I have been very fortunate over the years to have some very significant mentors like Steve Schiff and Walter that I can really rely on, because business is healthcare. I'm in anatomical pathology. My wife and I are partners in a medical laboratory that serves many rural hospitals, including from Taos down to Deming, all the way to Alpine, Texas. And we also provide healthcare services to many medical practices around the state. So my expertise is in small business and in healthcare. I am far from an expert in ag issues, but I have a lot of friends and a lot of mentors who are not bashful, including Walter and Senator Diamond and Senator Purtle and Senator Woods. We're very open and vocal, and I rely on it very much. So I'm not going to sit here tonight and claim I'm going to be an expert on all the issues that deal with you, but I will promise you, Matt, and everyone on this call, my door will always be open, because I'm a small business owner, and that's what agriculture is. You know, these are multi-family, multi-generational family businesses, and I understand that. Our medical laboratory is 70 years old, has been providing services for many generations here in New Mexico. And our hope is that they'll continue to serve in New Mexico. If the government could get out of our way, and that we could actually be able to serve, especially rural New Mexico, better. So I get the issues, the small business, and the heavy weight of the federal government and the state government on us. So I'll always have an open door for you. And I look forward to a robust conversation tonight, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Melanie, you're next, Representative.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to the Farm and Livestock Bureau for having us today. It's nice to be amongst friends. As many of you know out there, I work a lot on food and agriculture issues, and I've had the tremendous pleasure of working with many of the groups that are hosting us tonight on a number of different legislative efforts, including helping to get additional funding for our State Department of Agriculture for our 4-H programs last year. I helped to pass the New Mexico Water Data Act, which the cattle growers played an integral role in helping to get passed, and especially this year working on a big farm bill that we were trying to get passed through the state legislature. And so I've spent many endless months talking to our producers, both at the commercial scale and at the small scale, to really understand, you know, what are the big barriers for agricultural success in New Mexico? How do we grow our agricultural economy, and how do we support our farmers and ranchers? So it's a huge passion for me. It's something that I work on and think about every single day. And it's something that I've spent a lot of my life thinking about, because I'm a water nerd and I work a lot on water issues and irrigation issues. And I've worked on these issues my entire career, including growing up right here in Albuquerque. My family owned a small irrigation and landscaping company. So I grew up operating a trencher and a backhoe and a bobcat and laying pipe and putting in wells and planting trees. So I have a very personal connection to working the land and the work that it takes to actually grow and help our communities thrive. So I'm Melanie Stansbury, and I'm running for Congress because I care deeply about our communities. I care deeply about investing in our communities and businesses and growing our economy and opportunities for our communities to thrive here in New Mexico. I grew up, like I said, here in Albuquerque. I went to public school here, and I have spent most of my life working on land and water issues across the state, including up north, working with acequias and small farmers up north, working on irrigation and water policy across the state, and at the federal level, where I was actually the Western Water staffer in the Senate Energy Committee and had the tremendous opportunity to work with agriculture and irrigation districts all over the West, including on really big issues like huge droughts and how do we sustain the water supplies of the West and rebuild our infrastructure, especially as we're going through these large-scale droughts like we are this year. So I'm running for Congress because I believe that we can grow our economy, and that we have to create meaningful jobs for our people. We have to invest in our small businesses. We have to address our infrastructure needs around water and broadband and our energy infrastructure. And we have to address our needs around healthcare and food security and all of the fundamental issues that affect the well-being of our communities. And it's that lifetime of experience, from growing up operating a trencher to, working in the sciences to working in Congress on water issues, that I will take back to Washington. I'll work alongside you as a partner to help lift up the voices of our communities, because I know that we have the grit and determination and the heart to get the job done and serve our communities and grow our economy. And that's why I'm running for Congress.
Thank you, Melanie. And I'm going to ask everyone to keep an eye on Elaine when she brings up her hand like this. That means that's 15 seconds. And then the second time means you're out of time. Okay. And I don't want to have to push that too hard. Now, Chris Manning was not able to make tonight's forum. So I did want to let folks know that he wasn't able to make the forum tonight. Okay, we're going to start off with some questions. In times of critical drought, how can you ensure that water allotted to agriculture makes it to the state's farmers and ranchers? That's the first part of the question. And the second part, how should water utilization be prioritized during this trying and limited times? So with that, we're going to start with Mark.
Thank you, Matt. Obviously, the water is a critical issue. It has been for many years since we first civilized Southwest. And the historical uses of water are very critical, including agricultural uses. And I have a huge respect to those historic uses of water in agriculture. And I think we've seen such a huge impact and pressure put on those historical uses. As mentioned before, my ancestors were Acequia members. My mom was actually treasurer of Acequia in Espanola until recently, until she retired. And what I'm really concerned about is this radical agenda that moves forward and tries to take away water from our traditional uses. So I think we have to be respectful of that, especially with agriculture, who's really led the way in helping create efficiencies with water. And I wish some of the municipalities, especially in the Rio Grande Valley, would actually learn some of the efficiencies. I sit in the two committees with Senator Kirtle, who's a farmer there in Roswell. And I love sitting here and watching him play on his iPhone, not play. He's controlling his water from his pivots, from his iPhone through the satellite, and really controlling and pinpointing that water use. And so I applaud the agricultural community for really becoming efficient in the use of water. And we have to continue to do that. We have to make sure the cities are carrying the water as efficiently as agriculture is done, because agriculture is such an important aspect of New Mexico's economy. It is one of our leading industries. We have to protect it moving forward. So we do have to protect the traditional uses of water, and that includes agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mark. And folks, the questions are 2 minutes. So if you see Elaine get up a little faster, that's why. We're going to go back to Robert. If you need me to repeat the question, I can. Robert?
Yes, please repeat it. Thank you.
In times of critical drought, how can you ensure that water allotted to agriculture makes its way to the state's farmers and ranchers? And how should water utilization be prioritized during this trying and limited times?
Well, years ago, I worked with the Navajo Nation presidents, and in those meetings, we had the mayor of Farmington, the Navajo State Police, the Farmington Sheriffs, and also the Navajo Police Department. And we would work with the delegates of Israel, and they would share irrigation methods like drip systems and mulch to prepare us. They would tell us years ago, I was a kid, and they would tell us of these mega drought seasons that New Mexico was heading for. And my question back is, what have we done to prepare? So one thing that I'm a liaison. I've been an advocate. I've worked together with law enforcement, military, Native communities, Alaska, Puerto Rico, American Samoan government. And my thing is to collaborate. And this is going to take a collaborative effort. I want to thank the Water Authority for showing me their 100-year plan, and also the gentleman over at the Water Conservancy that showed me their ideas of on-farm irrigation management. And that's what we're going to need to do. We're going to have to rely on scheduling, to rely on making it habits, to rely on these management on-farm methods, so that way the next person doesn't have their water wasted. And that's where we're going to have to, that's what the Conservancy recommends. And I champion that as well. So that way we can have, like I said, collaborative efforts along with the Fish and Wildlife to show us how to handle the habitats, how to handle the environment. And also I've been working with the Conservancy District of Pueblo, Colorado, along the Arkansas River. And their thing is they've been taking out non-native plants out of the Arkansas River. Invasive alien species are plants, animals, pathogens, and other organisms that are not native to the ecosystem. So it's all about the ecosystem. So I am here to help out the constituents so that we save the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Aubrey, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, I don't. Thanks, Matt.
Go ahead.
You know, drought, and I guess I'm experiencing it firsthand as we're starting to liquidate our herd. As water is a very precious issue, and I grew up with it. You know, when you looked at what's happening within the state engineer is in charge of our water, and he's the one that needs to enforce priorities, and he has jurisdiction over that. And we need to make sure that agriculture priorities are honored. If somebody else needs the water, then they need to pay for it. You know, as far as water conservation, as Land Commissioner, we treated 51,000 acres, both of mesquite and cedar, 1C juniper cedar, which steal tremendous amounts of water from New Mexico. And even here on the ranch, we do a lot of cedar eradication. We've done about 2,000 acres, and each cedar tree takes between 10 and 30 gallons of water per day. And so there's millions of gallons of water that's being used by cedar trees that could go back into aquifers. You know, as Land Commissioner, I also stood up for water. I fought against using Ogallala water for fracking. In fact, I sued the state engineer over using temporary permits in the Carlsbad area to appropriate water without any hearing or anything else. And so that was one of the lawsuits we filed in 2018 before we left office. So I'm very sensitive to water, and I understand. I mean, I actually have worked on it. I haven't worked in Washington on policy, but I've actually been on the ground and made changes in New Mexico water policy. So I look forward to working with all the different industries on promoting and protecting New Mexico water.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. Next, we'll go to Melanie.
Thank you, Matt. You know, I think that Mr. Dunn spoke to the really difficult challenges that we're already facing this year with the drought. I know that already ranchers across the state are having to cull their herds, and we're already preparing for a really, really dire water year. You know, our reservoirs are low. We didn't get our monsoons. We didn't get the snowpacks we were expecting. And so we have to buckle up for a really difficult year this year. So, you know, as I mentioned, I've worked in water my entire life, from laying irrigation pipe to working in policy at the national level on these issues. And, you know, I think for this year in particular, we got to make sure that we use every last drop of that water to its fullest. So that's making sure that our federal and state and irrigation districts are managing that water as nimbly as possible, that we're making sure that we're putting all that water to the best possible use that we can. But, you know, because it is going to be a hard year, we also need to be providing supports for our ranchers and farmers, because there's going to be some unavoidable costs. And so this last year in the legislature, we helped to pass some funding that will help with voluntary fallowing this year, which will help some of our farmers get through. And I think that's going to be an important sort of bridge as we move into this next year. But we need to be using all of the, you know, science, data, technology, making sure we use every drop to its fullest. I agree with Senator Moore's that we need to be protecting our traditional communities with the most senior water rights. And for those that have junior water rights, I think those collaborative frameworks that help figure out how do we stretch water, how do we make it available, and how do we help farmers, especially who have long-term investments in crops and infrastructure get through this drought, all of those things are going to be absolutely critical. So it's the infrastructure, it's the science, it's the collaboration, and it's everyone coming together to make sure we use our water to the fullest this year. So
Thank you, Melanie. Laura.
Thank you, Matt, for that question. Us being a small campaign, we don't have access to larger farmers as far as getting information directly from them, but I do want to hear from everybody. Who I do have access to are these small farmers who are who not even own but lease quarter acre of land to 14 acres. They are gathering together, banding together to use the knowledge, like Senator Moore said, the indigenous knowledge and their 400-year ancestry as well. One thing that I do ask is what keeps you up at night? And they say the complete loss of the water supply. And some solutions that I hear are better management, tweaking the management reservoirs. Also, speaking to these smaller farmers, they talk about how they're already using drought methods of using less water. And one of the reasons that they tell me that they need more funding on the federal level, which they don't get. And they also say that on the state and local level, to them, it seems like crumbs, is that they're not only investing in New Mexico, but their products stay here in New Mexico. And so I believe that that priority of water allotment should stay to the people who actually keep their products here in New Mexico and fund those smaller communities, fund the community the projects here. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And we'll go on to the second question. This question is a little long. The Farm Bill is vitally important to New Mexico farmers and ranchers. What are your thoughts regarding the preservation of beneficial programs within the bill? And how would you get help to your constituents to take advantage of these resources that are often available but challenging to access? We're going to start off with Aubrey.
Thanks, Matt. The Farm Bill is essential to U.S. agriculture. And I think the thing we need to remember is that it's one thing to be dependent on foreign oil and foreign microchips now, but it would be a whole lot different if we have to be dependent on foreign food. So making sure that our agriculture community is saved and progressing and sustainable, we're going to have to really work on the Farm Bill. I mean, there's lots of issues there. The latest, a concern that came out of the latest rescue bill that went to agriculture, there was about $10 billion that went that's separate from the Farm Bill. And in that, $4 billion of it went to pay off debt based solely on race and no other reason. And so I think one thing we need to make sure is that the Farm Bill is not in itself racist, but it goes to the needs of those who need it. In New Mexico, the Farm Bill is very essential. I mean, there's lots of insurance programs as far as grass and crops and different things, but we still need to get back and make sure that, in the farming community that we save it and we protect it, because without it, and we're depending on foreign oil, there's just, and depending on foreign food. I mean, one of the really big issues that, concerns us is dependent on imported food. And so we need to work to protect New Mexico farmers and US farmers in what best we can do. And I think the Farm Bill is a good example of that. I'm sure there are things in it that aren't really needed, but overall, I think it's very excellent for our community and for New Mexico. Now, as far as getting out and doing outreach, so it's used more fully within the state, I would commit to go to whatever meetings I can, if they'll schedule around my schedule in Congress, to attend cattle growers or Farm Bureau or or dairy producers or any SACIA meetings or whatever it takes to get the word out on what's available in the Farm Bill. And I plan on hiring agricultural specialists within my staff should I become Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Same question, Laura. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, thank you. So when it comes to access and access to resources, what I've seen and what I've heard is that there isn't any help with getting through the paperwork and getting to those resources. A lot of these farm workers or farm owners and leasing farm workers, they have to take time away from their farm, time away from their work in order to get opportunities from this Farm Bill. I believe as an elected official, it should be our job to go out there and find people who need this access to this farm, to these funds. And you know, farmers already wear multiple hats, and having to wear one more, it's just very, very inconvenient, I believe, in my perspective. And like I said, I don't pretend to know much about agriculture here in New Mexico, but I am willing to learn. I am wanting to work with both sides because it just seems that they are just so divisive. And I plan to, you know, hire small farm workers and large farm owners to really bring together what we deserve. And what we deserve is coming together, become sustainable, become independent. So when things like COVID come and we don't have, you know, food on our shelves, we could rely on these smaller farms that they were not impacted, and we could help each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, very much. We'll go to Melanie.
Well, I am really passionate about the Farm Bill. It's something that I think is one of the most important things that our federal government does, because the Farm Bill provides critical resources to our farmers and ranchers. It provides resources to our communities, especially our rural communities. It helps to provide funding that's absolutely crucial for meeting nutritional needs and hunger needs across the country. And it's also a huge conservation bill. So it provides a lot of resources for doing conservation and land stewardship. So the Farm Bill is one of the most important pieces of federal legislation. And I think that one of the most important things that a congressperson can do is to help bring more of those resources home to New Mexico. And one of the things that we hear all the time from farmers and landowners is exactly what Laura was talking about. You know, people are busy. They're out on their tractors. They're out planting their fields. They're, you know, taking care of business. They're doing, keeping the books, whatever it is that they need to be doing. And applying for each of these individual programs is really a huge burden on individual farmers and ranchers. And so one of the things that I hope to do as your next Congresswoman is to help create not only a rural desk, which I love that Mr. Dunn talked about and is also something that I've committed to doing, but also to create greater constituent services around applying for grants and programs and working with our state USDA office so that all of our farmers and ranchers, our soil and water conservation districts, our irrigation districts, our small communities, our rural communities can really fully take advantage of those federal programs because they are vital to addressing the needs on the ground and helping to support our farmers and helping to support our communities. So not only do I support that work, my commitment to the food and agriculture community is to help provide additional resources through our congressional office to help access those resources. So, yeah.
Thank you, Melanie. Robert, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I've been blessed to be an outreach specialist since I was a kid, working in just about every single city in the United States of America, all the United States territories, every single Native American community in our country. And it is my job to encourage communities to come together. I help out the law enforcement, encouraging people to just come together, encouraging Native communities to learn their language. And the reason that I say that is because when I become the next congressman of the Congressional District 1, that will be my job, to outreach to these United States veterans, letting them know that there is resources and funding so that they could get out there and be entrepreneurs. For the ladies and gentlemen that are 55 years and up, I want to encourage them that they have all this wealth of wisdom that they could share to the younger generation, to minorities. There's so many minorities in this area, this part of the world, or the four corners of our country. I want to encourage minorities that this is their season. After studying the Farm Bill, I want to encourage all the people out there that here is an opportunity to get involved, to be proud about this community, and to give back to the young people. So it's just the Farm Bill is just an amazing piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. And let's see, we've got Mark. I'm sorry, Mark, you're next, sir.
No problem, Matt. And it's really actually encouraging to see such a bipartisan support of this real important legislation that we're all is so critical to the state and to the nation, not just the farmers, but the SNAP program, resources for rural public safety, and of course, school nutrition. You know, we saw a huge impact on nutrition in the last year with schools being closed and children not getting the nutrition they need. And we're going to be facing the ramifications of that problem for a number of years. So it sounds like we have a lot of bipartisan support because it is such an important, critical bill. And one of the questions that you had was how we are going to make sure we communicate. And like Melanie and Aubrey, I have already committed during a recent meeting in Torrance County that I would have a staff dedicated solely for rural issues. One of the problems with this congressional district is that it is so urban dominated with the Albuquerque area. And so we need to really make sure we are reaching out to the rural parts of New Mexico, Torrance County, Valencia County, parts of Sandoval County, that have those traditional uses of water and land and resources. And so I have committed to making sure that we have that resource as a staff to work with all the federal agencies, with all the state agencies, to make sure that we're getting that coordination, that grant money, and the ability to actually apply for what we need in New Mexico to help our farmers to thrive and succeed, because it is such a critical element of our state economy. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate the question.
Thank you very much, Mark. And just as a personal note, in my many trips to Washington, D.C., as you look down the mall and you see the size of the Department of Agriculture facility on the mall, it just takes anybody aback if you've never seen the whole mall to see how large that facility is. It's huge, because this country was an agricultural country initially, and rightfully so. I mean, I think sometimes we forget about all the other departments that government has created since then, but it's just a huge eye opener to me that it's so vast. And just a personal point of information here. When I saw that, that's the first thing I said, why is that one bigger than everything else? Because this is an agricultural country.
Well, it's one of the departments that actually touches most of our lives in America.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. All right, this one's a question that came from someone this evening, and it's a little bit long, but bear with me. This is the question. President Biden is looking to make some changes to the tax code in order to pay for new programs. These changes include repeal of the stepped-up basis, reinstating capital gains tax at death, and phasing out Section 199A, qualified business income deduction. These policies would significantly impact our state's farmers and ranchers. Do you believe these tax changes are necessary, and are you supportive of the proposed measures? And we will start with Melanie, if you don't mind. Melanie?
Thank you so much. So I do support President Biden's proposals. I think that it's really critical that we invest in American infrastructure. We've been trying for years to get an infrastructure package passed through Congress. When I worked in the Senate, we were working at that time trying to get a significant amount of funding set aside to help upgrade our irrigation infrastructure, because so many of our irrigation districts are, aging and they need extra investments. So the real question is, how do we pay for these investments? And I think that many of the proposals that have been put forward are potentially viable proposals, but at the end of the day, all of the sausage making has to happen to figure out how do we put together a package that can actually get through Congress, that can have the budgetary offsets to be able to make those critical investments, and that we can get, a bipartisan package through Congress. So I think we have a long ways to go, and my dedication is to making sure that we get an infrastructure package passed, because we need those investments in our irrigation infrastructure, in water, in our roads, in our broadband especially. And so we have to find the funding in order to do that. But in general, I support restructuring our tax code so that essentially our workers and our small businesses are able to thrive. And that's what's really, really important for New Mexico. So thanks for that question.
Thanks, Melanie. Aubrey, you're next.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, her answer scares the bejeebies out of me. I mean, including in this is having a 40% capital gains rate, these tax increases discussed will wipe out agriculture in the United States completely. No longer will farms and ranches be transferred down family generations. They'll be sold to pay the taxes. And yes, we need infrastructure, but the proposed tax rates that Biden has done will wipe out. And then the investment tax, taking that deduction away is even worse. I can't believe we're even considering this and talking about an agricultural forum at the same time. The tax rates, and that's just it. It gets so partisan. All we want to do is follow whatever the Republican leader says or whatever the Democrat leader says. I mean, these tax rates, talking about raising the tax rates like we are, is scary, hugely scary. And that's why I'm running, because I'm going up there to fight for New Mexico farmers and ranchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Robert?
Yes, sir. I mentioned the on-farm management scheduling system, and right now, farmers need maintenance on on-farm delivery systems, and water will not be delivered to slit-laden, vegetation fouled, or obstructed on-farm delivery system. So we definitely need infrastructure, but I don't support President Biden's increase on taxes at all. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Robert. Mark, same question.
Thank you, Matt. We've just gone through a pandemic, and the idea of leveling larger taxes on small businesses and farms is completely inappropriate. Many of our small businesses and farms have taken it on the chin, and all the farmers I know really want to pass on their farm to their children and have multi-generational families. Farms. And that's where I think a stark difference between me and Ms. Stansbury is in this race. When she was in the legislature, she has in 3 years voted for $500 million of tax increases, including on capital gains, including on fuel tax increases, which hurt obviously farms and all of us, especially working New Mexicans, and including income tax increases. And now she's talking about raising raising taxes on farms. It's just unconscionable. Those tax increases she raised in Santa Fe were during flush years. We had surpluses because of the revenue we're receiving from the oil and gas industry. And so even during flush years, she raised taxes by $500 million. And it seems like she wants to go to Washington so she can start raising taxes by trillions of dollars. It's a stark difference between the two of us. I will fight for small businesses and farms and fight this so that you all can actually pass your farms onto your children and have multi-generational family farms in the future. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mark. And we've got to be careful, folks, that we're not going after each other directly. I think we can still make our point, if you can, to sort of talk about the issues. I just don't want to become a back and forth here with this. Laura, you're next.
Thank you, Matt. Regarding the infrastructure plan, I do fully support this plan and increase in taxes. You know, there has been years and decades of our infrastructure just not being fixed. And as a mother who has to balance a budget with just one income, I have to see what needs to be taken care of. And if I don't go to the doctor because I have a toothache and it hurts, I'm gonna end up paying more. And this is what has happened. It's just putting things on the back burner for decades and decades. And finally, when we're faced with these issues, then we don't want to pay for it. But if something goes wrong, we end up paying extremely more for it. So yes, I do believe that we need to raise these taxes. We need to make sure we invest in Americans and American infrastructure in order for us to advocate for the collective well-being. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Laura. We'll continue with our questions here. Let's see. The next question is, what should the United States do to change its immigration system? If elected, how do you see your office engaging on issues of agricultural, labor/ag guest worker programs and border security? And we will start actually with Laura. We're going to start with you.
Thanks, Matt. You know, immigration has been a big part of my life. My father was born in Texas because my grandmother, they were migrant workers. They worked on farms, and he was born here in Texas. My mother came over. And they both worked as migrant workers, and they worked in farms in both the Southwest and in the Midwest. And so, you know, we talk about, I've grown up talking about their experiences working, being, you know, agriculture laborers. And I believe that the agricultural industry can advocate for humane and viable immigration policies. We are a border state. We understand that proper, comprehensible, straightforward immigration policy gives us border security. As far as agricultural laborers, I've talked to some farmers and I've talked to some laborers, and some of them like to come up here and they work their season and come back. Other people would like to stay here. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that immigration is something that must be next on the agenda. Just like infrastructure, immigration has been another topic that has just been put in the back burner on both sides, both Democrats and Republicans. That is one of the main reasons why I became an independent, because Democrats have done nothing to really help us get viable, comprehensive immigration status for, you know, all the undocumented workers that are here and that work hard. And agricultural farms that sponsor these workers have the opportunity and the upper hand to really show the rest of our nation that we can work together and make this finally come true. So we would need to create a just and humane and fast immigration policies that we know the rules in order to lower border trafficking and human trafficking, because we know that when those rules are set, we follow those rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Same question, Mark.
Thank you, Matt. First and foremost, we must secure the border. I'm the only candidate in this race who has called for finishing the border security. And that is critical. Every nation needs to have a secure border if it's going to survive. It's a national security issue. Secondly, we must pass and work together for comprehensive immigration. We are the shining city on the hill for generations and generations, hundreds of years. In my case, since the 1600s, when my ancestors came to northern New Mexico, this has been a land that has people have wanted to come here for opportunity and liberty. And we must continue to respect that. That is our DNA. And specifically with agriculture, we need to make sure, and I agree with Laura, politicians in Santa Fe on both sides of the aisles have failed as they made this a political tennis match for many decades on both sides. And we need to get this together. And with agriculture, we need to make sure we have the workers that you all need, including the guest workers program, so that we can do this legally and that we can have a system of fairness that respects the rule of law and it respects immigration while securing our border. And that is first and foremost, we must secure our border, but we need a system in place that we can have the opportunity for people to come here who want that liberty and opportunity and economic success that America provides. And we also need the system so that we can have workers who come here and guest worker programs to help drive our economy here in New Mexico and across the country. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mark. Aubrey, you're next.
Thanks, Matt. You know, our immigration system is broken. I think everybody agrees with that. And it's been broken a long time. But for some reason, the current two-party system hasn't been able to fix it. Under the previous administration, border crossings were lessened. And so having a secure border is super important. But on the other hand, we need to figure out a way to get people into the United States that want to come here legally and set up programs where they can work either as green cards or a resident alien, where they can safely be in the United States and not be taken advantage of by unscrupulous employers. So I really think that it's time that we put an independent in so that someone that can work across the lines and has actually been part of the problem and seen it. You know, you talk about one of the things that's happening to the rural community in the southern part of the state is that, you know, one of the reasons we have a federal government is to protect us. And right now, the families and ranchers and farmers and the citizens in the southern part of the state are not being protected. They're being overrun. We have a crisis, whether the current administration wants to admit it. So I really think we need to get together and do an immigration policy that will allow people to work here legally and keep the criminals out. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. Melanie.
Thank you. I agree. We need a fair, just, and equitable immigration system with clear rules and to support people who would like to come work here in the United States. One of the things that I hear working with the Farm Bureau and many of our agricultural producers is that there's a shortage of workers that are willing to work in our agricultural industries. It's impacting our chili industry here in New Mexico. You know, we actually saw a decrease in chili production over the last decade, and in part that had to do with labor shortages. Like, this is a big deal for New Mexico. So we need to be making sure that we are putting into place bipartisan immigration reform that protects our dreamers, that provides a path to citizenship, that addresses our asylum system, and provides a robust guest worker and worker programs that protects the rights of our workers, that provides good opportunities, and that meets the needs of our agricultural and other industries. So we need bipartisan reform, and we have to get it done because literally our communities and our farmers really depend on us taking action and taking these actions in Washington. And so as your next Congresswoman, I am committed to working across the aisle to do that work and working with all of our industries to make sure that it meets the needs of all of our industries and our workers.
Thank you, Melanie. Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. There is a Swiss example for foreign labor if employed. They have an employment contract, current bank statements of the last 6 months. certificate from the employer, income tax returns. And so this is what I've been studying, this example, this model that we could take a look at. At the same time, I want to do away with anchor baby because I don't believe in separating the children from the parents. The Bible says that a house divided will not stand. And once I become congressman for Congressional District 1, I plan to introduce a bill that amends the Snyder Act of 1924, doing away with second-class citizenship of Native Americans or American natives. And the reason that I say that is because my mother was born in Mexico and lawfully came to the United States and was naturalized. But the point is that she has family that are Native Americans, but because of the Snyder Act, it did not extend to our war veterans that had children abroad. So I plan, once I get into Congress, to do away with amending and introducing a bill, sponsoring a bill that ends second-class citizenship for American natives. And I'm talking about Native Americans and Eskimos and Native Alaskans as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Robert. And I understand that Mark has to leave now at 7. Is that correct, Mark?
Matt, I'm sorry for there was confusion, but I had my schedule that this was for an hour and we have another event to attend. So is this going to go much longer?
We're about halfway, Mark.
Yeah, and I apologize about that. We had the schedule for an hour. So let me, my phone number is 505-681-1975 and my website is Moores for Congress. And so I apologize if we had a communication error on this, but we did have a schedule for an hour.
Well, let me do this, Mark, real quick. I want to give you a couple of minutes to do your closing statement, and then we'll continue the forum if that's fine with everyone else.
Again, I apologize for the miscommunication. Obviously, there was between our staff and the Farm Bureau, there was some miscommunication. So I apologize. I'm sure I have some fault in that myself. I just wanted to thank everyone. It's a great conversation. I do need to go. I am Mark Moores. I'm running for Congress for a brighter, better New Mexico. As we talked about, our family's been here since the 1600s. I'm passionate about this state, and I'm very concerned about the direction it has been headed in. Sorry I won't be able to continue this conversation, but I encourage everyone to give me a call. I give you my cell phone number. Go to mooresforcongress.com for more information. You can send me an email too. New Mexico is at a crossroads, and we have a very striking difference between the agendas that we're looking at here. And one of us is small business owners and really going to fight for small business and really move forward in New Mexico. And one of us wants to talk tax and spend and continue to have government regulations piled on and drive New Mexican businesses out of business. And it's just a shame. So Matt, I really appreciate your time. I encourage everyone to get involved, go to our website and make a donation, of course, and we can actually change the seat and change the direction of New Mexico from the stale, static politicians that have run this state for 90 years. And this is where we are right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Matt. And I'm sorry I have to bounce here.
Thank you, Mark. And folks, we're going to continue with the questions. This is the next question. What do you consider to be the major issue facing New Mexico agriculture at this time? And what do you feel is the solution? And we're going to start with you, Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I'd have to say water. Definitely, we need to come up with a culture for water for the great state of New Mexico. I'm talking about from nursery rhymes, from kindergarten, marketing and promotions, just a full-blown outreach to conserve water, to when we take a bath, that we use that same bath water to water the plants. And so I believe that the water is going to be the major thing, the major issue that we need to focus on, because it's all about nutrition. It's important that these young people get the right nutrition, that they get fed right at school. Rumors of a mega drought, but I want to encourage the constituents. I want to encourage the ranchers, the farmers, the consumers, and everybody out there. After a collaborative conversations with all the different agencies, from the Fish and Wildlife to the conservancies to the Water Authority, they're encouraging the people to be patient. And we're going to solve these issues. We're going to find a way. And I just want to encourage the constituents that let's be patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Same question, Melanie. Melanie, go ahead, Melanie.
Sorry, I heard my name. So I actually agree. I think water is the, first and foremost, the big issue this year. But I think our agricultural economy faces a bunch of challenges. And, over the last year, since we've been convening our food and ag table, we've been having a lot of conversations, many of which you all helped to put together and have brought to the forefront. I think labor issues are huge. How do we make sure that there's enough people who are going to work in our agricultural industries? I think the future of agriculture is a big concern that's on the minds of a lot of farmers and ranchers, is to really figure out, how do we cultivate the next generation? How do we make sure that people who are coming up have every opportunity to become farmers and ranchers if they want to, and the resources and tools and investment to do that? And I think infrastructure is another big issue. New Mexico actually exports over 90% of our agricultural products, in part because we don't have meat inspection and processing in this state. So if you're a rancher, it's really difficult to get your meat to market here in state. Or if you're producing vegetables or other agricultural products, we don't have the food processing and distribution infrastructure in our state so that you can sell to New Mexicans. So these are all really big topics. And I think that part of our role, is whoever is the next congressperson, is to help make sure that we're bringing tools, resources, opportunities to work with our agricultural community to address all of those needs, addressing our labor needs, addressing the future and investment, and also addressing these really critical issues around infrastructure, because I think the sustainability and well-being of our agricultural industries really depends on that.
Thank you, Melanie. Laura, you're next. Again, what do you consider to be the major issue facing New Mexico agriculture at this time? And what do you feel is the solution?
I agree with both Dr. Ornelas and Melanie, is water. Water, like I keep hearing, the state motto, agua es vida, right? And I believe, educating New Mexicans, both in urban and other areas on conservation, living wages, so that we could, continue agriculture in New Mexico, where I recently learned that 50% of BIPOC farmers have a second job. And growing up in the Southwest, my mom, my grandmother, they always taught me, una gota vale un chorro, which means, a drip is as important as a stream. And I think we need to go back to that, and together we can learn from each other, teach each other of ways to conserve for the future of agriculture here in New Mexico.
Thank you, Laura. Aubrey.
Well, I kind of agree with everybody on the water issue and all that, but I really think we're at a point where we have a broken government system. New Mexico's last in education, and first in crime in Albuquerque. We look at the immigration policies is broken. How are we going to fix this? And so I look, we looked at, you didn't bring up the Endangered Species Act, but that's another thing that was well-intentioned in the beginning, but now it's broken. It only has a 2%, less than a 2% success rate. So, there's a lot of government failure, and I think that's kind of one of our biggest problems. I know the government can't make it rain. There's only one person that can do that. But government failure overall, we need to work on our educational system. We need to work supporting our police. We need to work getting agricultural dollars back to agriculture. You know, we had to start we're retailing our beef now. And so tomorrow I'm going to drive to Colorado to a USDA inspected processor to process meat that we're going to turn around and resell here in New Mexico at farmers markets in Albuquerque and Cedar Crest. So yeah, there's a lot of issues, but I mean, it was hard for us to even sell at the Cedar Crest market because the county of Bernalillo was asking for 3 or 4 business licenses for us to do business just to sell USDA inspected beef. So I really think that we have a broken system, and the two-party system has really failed us, I believe, and that's why we need to bring in an independent. So if you ask me what the biggest problem in agriculture is today, it's a broken government system. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. And we've got another question from the audience, and it's this. What are your thoughts on President Biden's 30 by 30 plan? How will you work to guarantee farmers and ranchers that their voices are heard while ensuring that they receive credit for the conservation work they are already doing? And we're going to start with you, Aubrey, on this one.
Well, you know, the 30-30 program, when you look at it, it sounds great, but you know, already 34% of New Mexico is federally owned. Part of the plan, though, is going to remove cattle from BLM lands. If you read in depth some of the things going on, so really the 30-30 plan is going to put ranchers out of business in New Mexico. I'm very much against it. I think it's misguided. It's going to really do damage. And you know, as a person said, we're already doing conservation measures. I'm a member of the Chaves County Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm a vice president of the Coalition of Conservation Districts. So, I mean, I work on conservation all the time, but to come in and say that we're going to remove cattle from BLM lands, you know, it's dry now and cattle need to be removed in some areas, but you know, when it returns, the cattle return and it helps our overall range having grazing on it. So I'm really concerned about this 30-30 program and removing cattle from BLM in New Mexico.
Thank you, Aubrey. Laura, you're next. Laura.
Sorry. So, you know, when it comes to climate change, you know, average people like me who don't work in agriculture, we work, you know, here in the city, we see climate change becoming more frequent storms, stronger storms, impacting not only agriculture, but impacting other industries as well. And I hear the youth. I was talking to a group, Climate Justice Change for New Mexico, and to hear these children talk, look at me and say, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do for our land? You know, Republicans and other conservatives talk about, you know, conserving money and what is the future we're gonna leave for our children as far as the budget. You know, what are we gonna leave for our children as far as our lakes and land? And this 30-30 is a good way to start for me. And we are already so far behind, and we need to catch up, and we need to catch up fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's see, we are going to go over to Melanie.
So, you know, the 30 by 30 concept is really a conservation concept. And the idea is that we would conserve and restore 30% of our lands. And I think, you know, several other people have said it tonight. Farmers and ranchers are stewards of our lands. They care deeply of our lands. And increasingly, the conservation movement understands that if we're going to conserve our lands, we have to do it on working lands. So That's through partnerships with private landowners who want to participate in these programs. It's through collaboratives with ranchers and users of our public lands. It's with our traditional communities, like our land grant communities, with our tribes. So how do we reconnect our landscapes? That's really what the 30 by 30 concept is all about, is how do we reconnect our landscapes at scale so that we're protecting our water, so that there's water available when we face droughts, so that we're improving wildlife habitat for all of the wildlife that we care about, so that we're improving grasslands that are used for both rangeland and for wildlife habitat. So I support the 30 by 30 concept. And I think, you know, implicit in the question and the way you asked it, Matt, is how do we make sure that those who are working on working lands have a seat at the table? And I think that's the most important question here, is to say, how do we ensure that our working lands and the people who actually work them have a seat at the table in crafting those policies and what it ultimately looks like? And so I strongly support that. I think it's really critical to both our ranchers and farmers and to the conservation of our lands.
Thank you, Melanie. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. New Mexicans are one of the smartest people on the planet. New Mexico created the atom bomb, nuclear weapons. New Mexico has military bases, there's laboratories, space programs, amazing irrigation systems. So what I believe is that let Capitol Hill focus on Capitol Hill and let the great people from the great state of New Mexico create committees and commissions to manage New Mexico. Just like there's commissioners on the water compacts on all these different states, we have to hold them accountable. And in the same way, let the people hold the people accountable and let Washington focus on Washington. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. And folks, we're going to come to the end of our forum tonight, and we're going to give all of the candidates 3 minutes for a closing statement. And if you don't mind, at the very end, give maybe a phone number or a website where people might be able to reach you if they have any more questions. And I want to thank you on behalf of the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, their staff, Chad Smith, Tiffany, Delane, for helping us put this thing together, and for all of you who are taking time out of your busy schedule. We know how busy it is during this time of the campaign to meet with folks in the agricultural industry who depend on a lot of what you say. So don't think they're not listening. Every word you say, they're sort of saying, is that going to work out for me or not? So we appreciate that very much. So with that being said, I think we're going to start off with Laura. Laura, you have 3 minutes for a closing statement, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to, speak to what I have learned so far. Like I said, I don't know much of agriculture, but I am, I've been trying to learn as much as I can. I do want to invite you all to please visit my website and please send me an email regarding of what you would like me to hear about your perspective. I really do want to learn. My website is Laura Olivas for New Mexico. Thank you again for listening to my perspective on what I have learned so far. I have a lot to learn, but I am relentless in my pursuit of the mission. And the mission is to advocate for the collective well-being. And when I say the collective well-being, is not only will these policies, these new policies that are being made, policies that need to be changed, policies that we could change together, not only work for you, but work for the rest of New Mexico, because I believe that that is the way that we could, just like our ecosystem here in New Mexico, our wonderful lands, that when we unite together and we share the knowledge and we don't hoard that knowledge that we have, then we are able to show the rest of our nation that we not only can combat climate change, we could combat inequalities and inequities such as racial justice, living wages, and giving back the power that the people have. And I know that together we could definitely continue to grow the economy with agriculture, grow our health, and live better as a collective well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I just want to let the constituents from the Congressional District 1 know that I am not working with any special interest groups. My campaign, my candidacy is an honest campaign. It is an honest cause. My linkage to this area is the 34th parallel, 34 degrees north of the equator, thanks to the Arizona Territory Confederacy of Arizona was an organized incorporated territory of the Confederate States from August 1st, 1861 to May 26th, 1865. Thanks to my Cocoa Puff family that have been in the Yuma, Arizona area for thousands of years, and that is our linkage. Like I said, I plan to do a way to honor the United States veterans from American Native communities here in the United States of America by amending the Snyder Act of 1924 and doing away with the second-class citizenship of American natives to honor the children of our United States veterans. And I also want to share that we've been working out of Pueblo, Colorado, thanks to the Ron Cerna anti-bully nonprofit organization, working with Chief of Police Davenport, working with the district attorney, working with state senators, getting ready to work with the governor of Colorado. And what we've been doing, we have an anti-bully program that works in all the elementary, middle schools, high schools, thanks to the Bureau of Indian Education, working with communities to build self-esteem. So I believe this is how we will solve the violence in our communities in the United States, the gun violence, to sit there from kindergarten and preschool and encourage them with families, through advocates, through the law enforcement, working together with nonprofit organizations to reduce crime and gun violence. So my name is Dr. Robert Ornelas. My phone number is 714-808-2545, and I will be the next congressman for the Congressional District 1. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Robert. Next is Melanie.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Tiffany, for organizing this event. And thank you to all our ag organizations out there who hosted tonight. Obviously, you know, we have to support rebuilding our economy, investing in our agricultural industries, and supporting our farmers and ranchers. And as your next Congresswoman, I look forward to continuing to work with all of you to make sure that you have that seat at the table, to make sure that you have good representation in Congress, and that I am coming out into our communities, that I come to visit and listen to the people in our rural communities and who are working the land and feeding our people, to make sure that your interests are represented in the work that we do in Washington and here at home. So I'm Melanie Stansbury. I'm running to be our next Congresswoman because, as I said, I believe deeply in our people. I believe in our future, and I do believe that we can build a brighter future for our people. I believe this because I grew up here, because my roots are deeply rooted here. I grew up in Albuquerque. I went to public schools here, and I have spent my entire career working on land and water issues here in New Mexico, working in Washington, D.C., and serving as a legislator, collaborating with many of you on our food and hunger and agricultural issues. And I know the work that we need to do to invest in our infrastructure, to build our economy, to invest in good paying jobs, to support our local businesses, to grow our agricultural economy, and to deliver on broadband and water and all of that critical infrastructure that we need for our communities to thrive. That's why it's critical that we elect someone who knows the system, who knows the science, who knows our communities, and who will put our communities first. And that is what I will do as your next Congresswoman, because I know that as New Mexicans, we have the grit and determination and the heart and the hard work and the respect to get the job done. And I will work alongside you and fight alongside you to serve our communities. And I thank you tonight for having us, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Aubrey, you're last.
Hey, Matt, thank you for putting this on and hosting this. And yeah, I do want to come do an interview sometime, and I'll get the information from Tiffany. And Tiffany, thanks for what you've done in putting this together and all the support to get out to agriculture. You know, as I said from the beginning, I mean, I've lived in agriculture. I grew up on an apple farm, and my wife and I decided we wanted to get in ranching when we were first married, and we worked to do that. We didn't inherit it. We've put together a nice operation here in Torrance County. So I guess if you're in the ag business and you're interested in a real advocate that knows what's going on, I live it every day right now. You know, yesterday I was out repairing a valve on our water system with the backhoe. I mean, the day before I was horseback. You know, I'm kind of a workaholic. Well, you have to be if you're in agriculture. You have to like to work. And I want to be given the opportunity to work for you in Washington. I know the issues. I grew up with them. I'm a native New Mexican, and I've been here working in New Mexico. You know, we have a lot of challenges facing us. The drought is number one, but the Lord will fix that. But as we look forward, you know, we need representation that's going to look out for not just agriculture, but all New Mexico. We have a huge crime problem in our urban areas. We've gone through a pandemic that has been horrific. I mean, our granddaughter is living with us 4 days a week to attend school in Corona, which happens to be one of the top 10 schools in New Mexico, because the Zoom classrooms in Albuquerque just weren't working. And what we've done to our children through this pandemic is criminal at the least. We've lost a year of education. She's fortunate because Corona is in person. She's got some great teachers, and she's doing really well. And so we have her 4 days a week, and then she goes to her parents the other 3. So I understand what's happening. I mean, I don't think everybody has families and understands what's going on, but if you're in the middle of it, you see where we are in as a country and as a state and in agriculture in New Mexico. So I'd really like the opportunity to represent Congressional District 1. I'll be looking out for the whole state, just not Congressional District 1. And any support I can get, I would appreciate. I would really love the vote. I'm number one on the ballot, hopefully number one in your hearts. And I look forward to serving. You can reach me through aubreydunn.com, our website, and I answer questions every day. So let me know how I can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey, and thanks you all. Tiffany, thank you for helping getting this all organized. I just get the opportunity to sort of share the questions and continue to keep up with the candidates. I want to wish all the candidates the best of luck. Like I said, this is a very tall order, and we need help in this congressional district immediately. So best of luck. Thank you again, and have a great evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.